Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have a very nice and dear guest, Dr. Daniel Bender, and I'm really honored to have him on this show today. Daniel, please introduce yourself to us and tell us what you do. Actually, we would like to know more about you.
Yeah, thanks, Nima, for the introduction and also inviting me to your podcast. So, my name is Daniel Bender, and like you already stated, I have a PhD. So, I studied computer science and then later did also PhD in that area, focusing on computer vision. And that's also when our ways were crossing, because after doing the PhD, I was starting in Tomra, where you are still working.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was leading their deep learning team, or creating a deep learning team, which was applying computer vision to images and doing what I like to call perceptive AI. So extracting information from sources and reasoning about them.
Mhm.
And I could go into detail more there, but in the end, long story short, my interests were then shifting a bit, because even before ChatGPT was becoming very popular, I was getting interested more and more into generative AI,
Mhm.
and was following that closely. And it was a lot with full-time job, family, and that new interest that I then decided to leave Tomora
Mhm.
and do more in generative AI. And now I focus on consulting and teaching companies about that, and especially in a privacy-friendly way. So applying generative AI, or especially chatbots, in a privacy-friendly way, and work with your own data without leaking that to the big cloud companies. And yeah,
Yeah.
space is evolving fast, and it's hard to stay up to date, but it's super interesting and super cool.
Yeah, that's super crazy that how fast everything's going forward. I'm always getting more news about generative, especially generative AI. And to be sure that your PhD was basically focused on generative AI, or
It was still what I call perceptive AI, so image understanding.
okay.
And in the end, then also going more and more in the direction of deep learning when I was still working as a researcher.
Mhm.
But it was that, and generative AI was not really a thing in
Mhm.
that point of time. That was then 2018 when I finished my PhD. Um, but yeah, there it was hardly able to build good sentences, and now it's crazy. I think all of you, or many of you, know what's possible today, and it's just mind blowing. And so far, perceptive AI during my PhD, and now all in my focus and interest on generative AI.
It is also quite interesting the evolution of the names in the AI field. I mean, like how it started from. I mean, I think nobody really was. I mean, like nobody really knew about the AI, like artificial intelligence, and so how it actually evolved over the time. And this naming, I don't know. For example, for generative AI, when was that it actually this name came up?
Yeah, if you we all name it nowadays AI, but many people working in the field, researchers, still like to call it machine learning. And to some extent, that's maybe more precise. But AI, artificial intelligence, is the buzzword right now.
Mhm.
It the roots of it were in the 1960s, at least of the techniques we know today, because what we apply are in the end really large neural networks. And first research in that area started in the 1960s with artificial neurons. And yeah, that evolved over time. There were AI winters where no funding was there, and then it was taking off, or deep learning at least, really large neural networks again in 2012. Then everyone was talking about deep learning, which is a special part of machine learning. And nowadays, yeah, the most hyped word is AI, and everyone is talking about that. But to be honest, there's also a little bit of misconception, misunderstanding, because some people are saying everything is AI, everything a computer does is AI, which is, from my understanding, not true.
Yeah.
There is a variation of things it can variate, and the most common nowadays are text. So many of you, if not all, are knowing ChatGPT. So it's really good in generating replies to text requests, but also generating images or videos or music or audio in general. So all of that is content which can be generated. Then you asked how it's becoming so powerful, how it evolved over time. So in the end, there are two different, let's call it branches, or two breakthroughs which happened. And one was 2017 by Google, which is the so-called transformer architecture, which is the core of all the chatbots we are using nowadays. And in the end, it's just a probability machine. So it's predicting based on the words it already has, which might be an input, the most likely next word. And there is a small randomness in, so not always the word with the highest probability will win. But in the end, that's all the magic. And then when that word is generated, that is added to the existing phrase of words. And then the input, which is one word longer, is used to generate the next word. Sounds simple, but super amazing that this technique, which I can break down in these two sentences, is able to generate the outputs we see today. So that is part one. And if you think about images and videos, the most common approach there is something which is called diffusion. And that is different in a way that maybe, just think about an image, and that image is generated out of noise. So we can maybe later go more into detail, but that are the two techniques which are in the core of it, one for text and the other for images and videos. And yeah.
Super interesting. And do you see that there is a chance of misconception in that people have about generative AI? What are the chances of misconceptions for people?
So from my point of view, the most common, if we think about text-based generations, is because the outputs are so good that people state or identify or think that the system is really thinking. But like I just explained, it's just a probability. So it's a model which was trained and recognized really good the patterns in human language and is able to generate outputs. But to be honest, it feels a little bit like magic because it's really good. So everyone who tried it, you can have conversations with it where you learn something and you are stunned. You give it questions where reasoning is needed and you get the correct answer very often. And so it's one misconception from my experience that people somehow have the understanding that these systems are able to think, which is not true. And it then goes further to some extent that even researchers, so there was a famous case in Google, someone working with the systems is then stating that the AI is conscious, so has a deeper understanding of itself and the world. Also that, it's just a probability machine, not true. Unless I'm maybe mistaken. So, but that is my technical understanding of all of it.
So you're not so optimistic about behaving of AI at the level of a human.
From the capabilities, yes, but being conscious, for me, it's still a no. So regarding capabilities, I think it's yeah getting more and more obvious that these systems are able to do a lot what before was exclusively done by humans, and that's maybe leading to another misconception because people are thinking AI will take my job, and to be honest, to some extent, that will be true because if you can automate it and drive the cost down of a task, that will be done. But it's a little bit like we have seen it with the calculator or the computer in the past. So a new device, a new technique was coming up, making things simpler. So some jobs disappeared, others were coming up and created out of nowhere. And I think this will be the same. So at least my approach is don't fear it. Work with the systems, explore them, and be the one who is good at using them and generating outputs faster and better than before or without them.
I think, as you said, it is now, I think, getting more and more obvious that people needs to somehow live with AI, somehow get educated about the AI, somehow use it as a tool rather than just oppose in every point or every scale of that. Okay, maybe it's time a little bit to get more technical. I would like to ask a few kind of question about the models like GPT, DALL-E, or Stable Diffusion. Which do they actually learn? The question is that how do they actually learn to generate text, images, videos? How do they really learn these kind of things?
So what you named is a mixture of text models and image models. And I already explained briefly that the text models work differently from the image models. And looking then at GPT or also all the other text-based models like Grok or Gemini or Llama or Gemma, there are a broad variation of different models, but they are more or less all trained in the same way. So it was identified that if you provide a lot of written text as training material, that the models can recognize patterns and recognize styles in it and learn how to form sentences in the languages of text presented. And if you add more and more text, even in different languages, it's not really confusing it, but it's giving more material to learn from. And what is done with that is it's creating a model which is good in applying the patterns it was seeing in the training data and mimicking that, so generating text in the same way. And it was recognized, and if we just scale it up, if we give it more material, more text to learn from, it's generating better outputs. And then with the step from GPT-3 to GPT-4, it was more or less a complete internet as training material. And then we have, as a result, a so-called foundation model. And that is step one, and sometimes even just named pre-training, because it's the first step. And then the model is quite good in generating text, but it's more or less just continuing what you give it. So if you give it a sentence, it will output the most likely next word or next sentences. But if you ask a question, you don't want another question because that's maybe most common in the internet. You want the answer. And there is then the step which is applied afterwards called reinforcement learning from human feedback. And there the model is trained with optimal output. So there are really then humans writing for questions, the output they are looking for, or which from their perspective would be the best. And sometimes even then doing ratings, is reply A or B better? And all of that human feedback is gearing that pre-trained model, which is just good in outputting language, in a direction where it can output valuable replies to requests. So that is, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's kind of like obvious that it still needs human supervision. So for learning process.
Yeah, at least today. So that was somehow the magic ingredient, which ChatGPT was becoming really helpful. There was that human feedback which was guiding it in that direction. On the other hand, what we see just recently, that are the so-called reasoning models. You might have heard of them. So instead of having that chat interaction, which we are all used to since quite some time, you have a model which is optimized in a way that it's not directly giving you a reply, but outputting words and going in different directions for the same problem. So very often it's in a math problem or a computer science programming problem or reasoning problem that is then helping if you go in different directions. And then in the end, everything which was outputted is then used to form the final answer. Mm-hmm. And these kind of models are more and more trained in an automatic way, because you have more logical problems where the answer in the end is clear, and there you can do in an automatic fashion feedback if the reply was good or not. Mm-hmm. But for many other requests, the general ones we just discussed before, there it's likely a human who is stating is A or B the better reply. And maybe just to add, maybe you have heard about the LM Arena benchmark. Mm-hmm. Do you know that one?
Yeah, I have heard it.
Okay, then maybe just for the audience who's interested, that is, from my perspective, the only benchmark or one of the few we can still trust, because everyone which is used as a benchmark, there we have known question-answer pairs, and somehow that material is leaking in the training material. And that is not because the company is saying, yeah, we put it all in and then we get a better model. It's because the questions which are known are discussed on Reddit and in other places. And so if you just scrape the internet to train your model, you have that in. And then you know the answer. And it's then looking, it's like looking up the answer in a textbook and not thinking about or reasoning about the problem and producing the answer. And the LM Arena benchmark does it differently, because every time you go there, you can ask a question. And then you get two replies, A and B, and you don't know which model is giving you the reply, and you can just rate, is A or is B? For me, from my understanding, the answer I'm looking for, and every rating you are doing and all the others are doing is then used to compute a score. To compute a score, it's not training the model, but it's only giving an output which model is currently performing best, because it's winning against many other models in a one-on-one battle.
Okay, it's a competition.
Exactly. And so much to text-based models. If that's clear, I can jump to Stable Diffusion if you want, or in the end, all the image generations.
Yeah, sure.
I briefly already explained, if you go for image generation, you do it completely differently and not less magical, at least from my point of view. It's math and it's core, but it feels like that because you're generating images out of noise. And noise are just random pixel values, and the model you have is trained in a way that out of a random starting point of pixel noise, an image is generated. And you might then think, okay, how is that done? Sounds again magical. Yeah. In its core, it's the well-known technique of Markov chains, so super mathematical background, but to break it down, explain it more easily, you start with real images, which are in the training material, and you apply that Markov chain process to generate noise out of that. So every time, in many steps, you add a little bit of noise out of that starting image. And you can think about, you have in the beginning a super clear image, and it's getting more and more away from that original starting point. And in the end, you just see random noise, at least as a human, that is your perception. And that process is used to learn the interaction or how noise and the image are connected. And very often you have some guidance on top, like having an image description, a caption of the image. So you have a description what is in the image, and that is guiding that process, and you learn how it's all connected. And after the training process, you can start with noise and the caption what you're looking for, and that process is applied in verse. And the image is, or one image which is fitting quite well to the caption is generated. And if you start with a different noisy starting point, you generate a slightly different image. And not less impressive, but totally different way. And again, a lot of training material is needed to understand the concepts in images, like the different animals, image compositions, lightnings, and all of that, which can be expressed in text form. How is that then expressed in an image, and how to generate that out of a starting point of just noise.
Super interesting, and it looks, it sounds complex as well. So it's not, as you said, it's probably a super complex mathematical model behind it. That's also something that I would like to ask is about the limitation of the current generative AI models. What are the, from perspective of software and also maybe hardware, what are the current limitation that also for improving these models?
Okay, hardware, at least I think it's easy to answer. It's availability, compute. We need more. So many people have take a look on the NVIDIA stock and think, why it's so high? It's because everyone is looking for their GPUs, because it's in the moment the best hardware to train the models, and to some extent even to run the models which are trained and generate the outputs if you use it to generate an image or text. But especially training, that is more or less only NVIDIA. For running the model, there are options, but hardware is a limitation. And if you want to buy GPUs in the moment from NVIDIA, good luck, because big companies are buying hundreds, thousands of them if they can get them. It's sold out for the next 2 years as far as I know.
They are probably pre-ordered. You cannot find them.
It's really hard to get, and but there are companies, especially the big ones, which somehow make it happen and build data centers like the one XAI did, which was the first one with 100,000 GPUs in one place. And XAI, the startup from Elon Musk, is catching up quite fast, and was realizing that data center in 4 months, I think it was. But all the companies that were asking before, they were stating, it's taking more than a year. Cannot be built faster, but it was done, and they trained their models in the biggest cluster so far and have achieved really great results.
Yeah, what they did, it blows my mind. I like it's super fast, like in very short amount of time.
Yeah. And really great results. There are hardware limitations, but you also have for software limitations of the models we have. And if I think about that for text-based, so I always like to distinguish, because like I explained, there are very different techniques behind and the outputs are different. So I always like to group text-based on the one hand and image video on the other one. And for text-based, I think the biggest limitation are still hallucinations. Likely you have heard of that. So it's if a model is outputting something which is not true. And it's, yes, on one hand, interesting why that is happening. Not that it's impossible to know everything, but what is the model trying to do? The model is trying to give you an answer which you're happy with. And if it's stating, I don't know, you're likely not happy. But if it's giving you an answer where you think that's true, but you don't have the capabilities to really judge and really look into sources, at least in the moment you're happy. Afterwards, maybe you're not happy anymore if you find out that it's totally make up. But that is more or less the core driver, and so hallucinations are still happening. It's getting better with the models getting bigger. On the one hand, because there is more knowledge in the models, but also you can quite easily in many models ask for sources, and you don't have to do that transfer yourself. And you can, in a follow-up question, ask for the source which is proving the output. That is helping, but in general also the new models are better, having less hallucinations, and also the reasoning models I mentioned are better in that. And that is still the biggest limitation from my point of view in text-based generative AI. And if I think about image-based, if you have followed the space, it's super crazy how realistic the images are. So you have really the capability to create photorealistic images, but also drawings which have really a high quality. And the limitation there, and also in the video space, which is catching up. If you look back 1 year, 2 years, it was such a difference what was possible in that moment of time. And what we have now is super realistic. In video, it's a little bit the problem of consistency. So maybe you have a short glimpse. Sometimes in an image, you have also an area which is not perfect. But yeah, it's getting rare and really impressive. And I think the biggest limitation there is to know how to prompt it. Prompting is a technique how you tell the AI what to do, what you are looking for. And for text-based, I always say just give it context. As much as you can describe about the problem you want to solve, you should add it. And in the end, in the best case, if it's really important, also state that it should ask you questions if it needs to know more before it's generating the answer. For images, that approach to some extent also works, but it is harder, and it's more difficult to really know how to prompt the system in the right way to get the good output. So if you just have a very short sentence, it's likely not working. And very often even the text-based LLMs are the ones you can ask and maybe also should ask to give you a prompt which is really good in generating the image you're looking for or the video by describing it in your words and having it then translated in a language which is more suited for the LLM or for the diffusion model generating the image. That is the right way to say it.
So, do you think that this hallucination that can happen as well in image, or it's only related to the text space? Because, I mean, for images, you can also consider it as an art type of there are a lot of creativity in the images, but text people are maybe more sensitive about the text. They say everything should be, reasonable and logic, but for the image, they are more tolerant. So,
I agree. And in an image, it's maybe also easier for you to spot, what you're looking for. And if there is something which is not perfect, very often your eyes are recognizing it.
Yeah.
And in written text, that is very often a harder problem to do. And it's also, like you stated, images and videos, it's more about aesthetic. Do you like it? Is it nice and fitting to what you're asking for? And if not, it's also easier to re-roll because you have in a glimpse of a second, you can look at an image and see if it's somehow fitting or not. For text, you have to read it, you have to think about it. Maybe there is one word off, giving it a totally different meaning, and that is hard to see and identify.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Before jumping to some more general questions like ethical or maybe regulation question, I would like to ask about the if AI or generative AI will somehow truly make some creative work, like something that is concerning, could be leads to, I don't know, misinformation or maybe deepfakes. So what do you think? Uh, okay, so maybe to clear that if the AI will be able to generate truly creative work, this was the right question. So
Okay.
how is it going to remixing the data, or it's just creating something new?
Mm-hmm. What are we humans doing if we are creative?
Yeah, basically.
So yeah. But in the end, your answer is how I think about it. So
Yes,
if
sure.
if I see that someone is creative or if I'm creative, what do? I build on my past experiences. What did I learn? What did I look at? Maybe making it more concrete. If I create an image, I have in my mind other images which I have seen or maybe drawn before and build on all of my experiences to create an output. And maybe it's then called creative because I was in a museum and was seeing a specific style of an artist, and then it's combining the concept we have in the real world, but making it in that style. And if we think that is creativity, so at least that is my definition, combining different ways I have experienced, then the AI is able to do that. But we have to think how is it doing that? And in many cases, it is creating different concepts or different styles because we are asking for it. It's not, at least not for now, that we let it run and say, create an artwork, and then we get something and we say, yeah, that's super cool, and it's combining stuff. So to some extent, some random approaches might be possible, but it's guided more towards humans. So it's making us or enabling us to express creativity in a totally different way. And just from my experience, I'm not good with pen and paper or pencil or drawing in colors, but with generative AI, I can think about different concepts and ask for an image and get an output which is somehow the thing I envision, and I can iterate over it and work with it and be creative. I'm not sure if that is answering your question, but I see that it can unleash my creativity. But can it be creative on your own? I think that was your question. Difficult, but depends on the way you think or approach the problem.
Yeah, I mean, like if you look from the out, let's say out of the box, generating new data needs probably practical tests. This is something is probably lacking. So why I name it as innovative solution is that something that is already does not exist, and about the specific experiments we have no idea. But if generative AI can actually produce that, like for example, a lot of research is going on in the material field, that they actually discover a new type of proteins or molecules or materials that did not exist at all, and something that can lead to discovery of new drugs. For example, if for example, there are a lot of research going on to find an optimal drug for cancer, for example. This is just the one way. So if the generative AI can really help us to at least to get some optimization of a molecule combination, something like that. Because as I said, you classically you have to actually do a lot of tests, do a lot of experiments to reach to this data. That takes a long time. But if generative AI can shorter this amount of discoveries.
Yeah, I think we have seen it already with AlphaFold, which was winning the Nobel Prize this year, and yeah, showing that it can help to identify new structures, which are then the core of drug discovery and creating something new. So it's totally possible. And there is also then the way to do scientific research to some extent in a completely AI driven approach. So you can have systems where you create a hypothesis, and then the system starts to run, and it generates tests to prove that or disprove it, and it's encoding and running the code and evaluating the result and writing a paper in the end. So sounds like a scientific coworker, but in the end it can also run on its own. And there was, I think 1 week back, there was the first AI lab in Japan, Japan, which was creating or submitting a paper in a major conference, which was accepted. And so human reviewers were stating that this work, which was done by only AI, so it was cherry-picked by the people working in the company, but it was accepted, which means it is pushing the state of the art in that field of science forward.
Pretty cool.
And that's super crazy.
Yeah.
And somehow expected, but at least on my side, not that early. So if you think a couple of months back, no one would have expected that.
Okay. All right. So I would like to again go back to the previous question that I would wanted to ask about the ethical point of view. How do you see the misinformation created, deep fakes that could be created? How do you see that? Is it dangerous? Could be like something that we should be concerned about that?
So deepfakes are just out of the capabilities that we have image and video generation models, which are really hard to distinguish, or the results are hard to distinguish from real images and real video footprints. And to be honest, that's a big problem. From my point of view, we have reached a point in time where we cannot just trust if we see an image or a video that is true, because it's very easy to generate that. Before, or at least some years ago, you were needing a lot of effort to create something that realistic, and now it can be done with just a prompt by more or less anyone. And that's really a big issue. And one solution from my point of view is we have to follow known sources, and hopefully They really judge and look at the sources to identify if that is fake or not. And yeah, the other way somehow, but not there yet, but likely to come, is also that we add some proof to the images and videos, which is stating that that video was generated by me because it has my fingerprint, which only I can add to it. And to be honest, with the quality we have right now and the pace that is moving forward, that is needed in the future. So.
Okay. So you mean that every video or image created should have a responsible person or a kind of corporation that takes that responsibility as the producer. So in this way, we know that which one has identification of production and which one does not have any identification.
Yeah, that is the only way out I'm seeing, because yeah, it's a flood of information and yeah, looks realistic, but we cannot trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think next question would be also related, because you talked almost about the regulations, that how we can actually prohibit this kind of misinformation. But do you have any specific idea about the regulation that especially in Europe, I think there are some work done in this field by the governments regarding the generated AI generated content. But do you have a specific idea?
Yeah. So on the one hand, we just discussed that it is big of a problem, but on the other hand, no one really is in the moment required to add a label, and I think that should change. And to some extent, I would value highly that people do that. For example, if I think about my newsletter, which I drive or I write every week, I was putting in issue number 4 or 5 a disclaimer in the end, because someone was reaching out to me. I love your newsletter, but I'm sure when you write about AI that you also use AI, at least to some extent, to write it. And it would really be good if you make that clear by just a short disclaimer in the end. And from that point on, I was having it always in, and I'm using it in different levels. Sometimes just to proofread or get ideas for the headlines. In some sections it's more, but at least in general I use it and I add a disclaimer. But the question here is when to do that, because if I only proofread and then change a word, do I need that disclaimer that is content which is to some extent AI generated, or do I not need it? But I at least like it to be added. For images, especially if you generate images, I always also just write which image generation model was used, also to give a little bit of insight to others. So in the moment, every time I have just a cover art more or less for my newsletter, and I add then a small caption which model is using or was used to generate that. And I would, to some extent, like to see that that is required to be done. But to be honest, it's really hard, because then everyone who is fine with it will do it, and if people are having bad interests, they will not do it. And so maybe the only way out is if we somehow have regulations which are enforcing that everyone who is creating a video, especially in the news area, is then adding a fingerprint that the source is clear where it is coming from.
Yeah. By the way, I am one of the followers of Daniel's newsletter. I highly recommend it. I will also write everything related to his, I think the name is 8 News or something like that, if I'm correct. Yeah.
It's 8ful.net, there you find it. Okay. Newsletter is called 8ful News. Exactly, yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so maybe the next question would be about the industries like filmmaking or music or writing industries, how do you see that the generative AI would help these industries specifically? Because I don't know, maybe I can imagine that in the future I go to cinema and just watch something that is basically is made by prompt engineering. So that someone was just doing prompts and then made a 1 hour movie. How do you feel that, like, going to watch such a movie?
I agree, and I would even make it more concrete because you stated you go to the cinema. I think there will be a point in time where you sit in the evening at home on your couch and you think about something which would entertain you now, and you prompt it, and then you start watching it. So it's an audience of one, which is maybe even more crazier. But yeah, in the end, why do I think that? So everything I have so far discussed is showing or highlighting the great progress in image and also video. And we are by far not there yet. But it will get better and better. And I always like to say that it's the worst AI we will ever have because it's improving more or less daily. And like stated, it's really hard to keep up. But if you think about the creative industry, so we have people working there and they have skills, they have that understanding of image compositions. And if you have all of that background, you will be way better in judging the outputs and also then in using the AI to generate the outputs you are looking for. So everyone there should see it as a tool. They should not see it as something which is competition, but just like a different kind of software which is helping them to get faster to the output they are looking for. And Steve Jobs famously framed that the computer is the bicycle for the mind. And thinking about the question you asked, I would like to state that AI is then like the motorcycle for the mind because you can go even faster. And maybe that is scary to one extent, but on the other hand, if you are able to create the outputs you are looking for without putting in all the effort which is needed today, I think that is great.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think it's kind of personalization of this domain. Like everything that could be costs a lot of $1 million, it would be created much cheaper and faster.
Yeah, there was recently the movie, I think it is called Flow, which was generated in Blender, and I was a little bit stunned. So it's an animation movie. And at least for my feeling, it's not looking super impressive from the quality of the art, but maybe that's personal judgment. But it should be really good in storytelling and a really amazing movie. And I was, somehow stunned at the price because that movie was still costing $30 million.
Oh.
And I think price to generate something which is there and can entertain you will go down. And movies are super expensive, so it's human labor, but also all the compute needed if you think about digital movies. And if you film it with a camera, it's also then the actors, but also the areas where the player is taking part and all of that for sure. But it will change. And special effects will get cheaper, animations will get cheaper, and having outstanding outputs as a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are almost at the end of the show, so I have 2 remaining questions to ask. The first one is that how do you see someone that is interested to come to the field of AI or generative AI research? What kind of skills he needs to have or she needs to have, and what should probably study to get involved?
Okay, you named research, and if I think about research, so I think obvious would be working on the big models we have discussed so far, and there it yeah, to some extent, really hard to go in. It's mostly if you have a PhD in that area, so you studied computer science or physics or math, and then worked on a PhD thesis which is closely related. So that is maybe the safest entry ticket into the big company, but it will take a lot of time. But if you want to, yeah, work with it, move it forward, it's at least my answer would be my general advice in the moment to anyone. Also, then if you think about school kids who are thinking about what to do and maybe having the fear, will AI make that work obsolete? It's do what you somehow are interested in, where you have passion for. And at my time, people were stating, if you study computer science, that is a safe bet. But to be honest, I'm not that sure anymore. But if you're interested in computer science and writing programs and understand how the computer is working and how you can create code which is then running on a machine and creating an output, just do that. So go where your passion is, and you will put in the work, have fun while doing that, and every field is in the moment influenced by AI. And if you're open-minded, it's like Ethan Mollick was having a great book called Co-Intelligence, stating always invite AI to what you do to understand what can it do today, or also what are the things it cannot do today, which it's maybe possible to do in 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then you can go back. But it's changing everything. If you're interested in working with it, it's more or less in every field.
So basically, there's no limitation. Everybody should somehow to get involved in the AI.
If you want to. So maybe some people don't want that, but if you really want to do the hardcore AI research working at OpenAI or in Anthropic to form the foundation models, I think then a strong technical background is really helpful. So physics, math, computer science. But if you're just interested in something else, you can also work with AI. So you don't have to push that state of the art forward to work with AI. So it totally depends. And my biggest advice is go with your interests and be open-minded, especially if you think about how will AI change my field, change the areas I'm interested in. And then I think, that is the best way and most likely fulfilling way to do something you love and also work with the newest technology.
All right. I want to wrap it up in 1 hour, so I will ask my last and final question. That's what is the position of Europe, especially Germany, in the field of AI in comparison with China and US? Because it seems like that they are way ahead. But do you have hope that we will reach?
Hope. I'm optimistic. So short answer is yes. But you're totally right. So every big model is nowadays coming out of the US, and lately, if you followed it, also out of China. There were also big releases. So DeepSeek R1 most likely the biggest, but also other models out of China are really great. There is QWQ from Alibaba, which is awesome. They have awesome video models. So China is really in a race with the US, and also regarding funding, that are dimensions which are not there in Europe. And on top,
it is interesting that they do open source it. That's something that is quite for me interesting.
So if you go in that direction, so there was Llama first, or Meta, which was releasing the Llama models. So a US company also doing open source models, which were super strong. And they started a lot of development from research institutes which could build on top of a llama model, because a research institute is never able to have the millions of dollars you need to create a foundation model. But if you start with llama, they could do interesting fine-tunings and work based on that, which was not possible before. So super cool and really highly valued by me. And then there was Shiner open sourcing it, exactly like you said. So there was DeepSeek v3 and then the R1, which was going viral all over. And from my perspective, why did I open source it? Because that is the easiest way to get the attention, because the model was good, but not the world best. So there was still ChatGPT, and then it would be just another good model. But with saying here it's open source, and we also write a really nice research paper and tell you everything we have done, how we have driven down the costs and created the quality we have. Everyone was going nuts in that area. And then just imagine the people sitting in OpenAI or Anthropic or XAI, and they're all reading the DeepSeek paper in paper round and trying to understand the magic, what they have done, and picking ideas and thoughts for their next training runs on their own. And yeah, super crazy.
It was super smart as well, I would say. It was.
Yeah, and getting all the attention was somehow based because on that. And yeah, super cool. And then again, like Llama, it's really nice for research institutes which otherwise cannot work in that area or not build on top something which is that great. And that is really making a big difference. But the initial question was about Europe and Germany. And you already stated that we are lacking a little bit behind.
Yeah.
And there are a few gems. So on the one hand, there is Mistral out of France, which is having also foundation models which are good. Many of them also open sourced. Nevertheless, they're having a hard time to really keep up because the dimensions of funding and training runs is on a different level. But they really also have great results and likely also learned then again a lot from DeepSeek, which they can integrate in their runs. And they're doing a great job. And I'm super happy to have them in Europe, to have at least one foundation model, which is a family of foundation models, which is not from the US or China. And the other company I always like to highlight is Black Forest Labs. And that is, in its core, the developers which did the first fusion model, which was more or less a university research group, but getting a lot of funding.
Where is it located?
Like the name is stating, in the Black Forest in Germany.
Schwarzwald, okay.
it's a German company.
Yeah, sure.
And they have released an image model which is state of the art. So, and it's open, or they have open source versions of it. The best one is closed, but you can use it via API. But out of Europe, out of Germany, state of the art, nice images to generate super realistic, nice art style. So anything you are looking for, it is there, and competitive, which is cool. But to be honest, it's really hard to keep up with all the funding out of the US and China. But the question is if that is needed or if that is the only way, because we already touched open source models which are available and which have a better and better quality, and it's easier to build on top. And what I see is also that these models should be more used in Europe and in Germany. And you think about the industry we have great companies in the machinery area, and the machines are producing data which can be used to judge about the machine states, and all of the foundation models, especially the ones which are open source, can and should be used way more by German and European companies to get ahead. On the one hand, sounds easy and doable. On the other hand, we have a lot of regulations in Europe with the AI Act. There are a lot of rules which state what should be done and what shouldn't, and it's really difficult. There's also something in called AI literacy. So that means if a company in Europe or Germany uses AI systems, also including chatbots, the employees should have an understanding of what is happening there, which is quite difficult, but at the same time also a niche where I try to establish myself, because like stated in the beginning, I'm offering consulting and also teaching in that area. And I see that many companies, also especially then maybe even small companies, should try to leverage what they have with AI and not fear away. So they have very often nice data collected over multiple years, and maybe it's not perfectly structured, but to some extent structure can be added, and you can work with that data, and you can have in your small company a chatbot which is using your own data to answer your request privacy-friendly way, that you are not talking to an outside server in the US or China, something in your small room, or maybe just a PC standing in the corner, and that is possible. And I think that is something which really should be used as a lever to make more out of the resources you have. And we should not shy away of doing that, because thanks to all the nice open source models, it is easier than ever before.
Super cool. Yeah. Thanks for your time, Daniel. I guess we are now at the end of the show, and I would like to again thank you for taking part in my podcast. It was a pleasure to have you, and we will see. Maybe there is also a next episode that we can actually talk about the progress in this field, and we will see how it emerge in the future. Thanks for participating, and see you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Was a pleasure. Thanks for being invited, and would be happy to have a second one. Thanks a lot, Nima.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so.